like, I don't know what kind of a wedding that I want. But I think there's a few things that kind of guide the kind of wedding that I want.
Well, we definitely don't want to do what some people do, which is basically mortgage your future in order to have a $50,000 or $100,000 or $250,000 wedding.
No.
Yeah.
Getting married costs money, and I think it's important to have the money conversation. It's so important. Do not get engaged if you cannot talk about money.
Yeah. How much sex have you had in the last week? Like you just asked that 4 or 5 times for us, right? That's easy. But you asked me how much money, like what's my total net worth?
I don't want to answer that.
Yeah.
It's been one of the most uncomfortable conversations for me to talk about. And it's up there
There was
in
actually
the leading cause of like what causes divorce.
Right.
So what's our third one?
Traveling. And when we say travel, one of the things that we discussed is that traveling can really bring out certain qualities in different people, and how well you travel together, I think, is important. And there are people, I have both friends and partners in the past who I've traveled with that were great, and friends and partners who I've traveled with in the past that were not great.
Yeah. And so just so everyone knows, we're not talking about like traveling abroad together.
Yeah, I mean, we did that.
We did that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about travel because when you travel, things happen unexpectedly. So things just show up.
Well, there's so much stuff, right? It's like, it would be like, oh, you get to the hotel and there's a problem, or you go camping and somebody forgot the matches, or you go to, Disney World for a weekend, you're going to spend a lot of money because it's expensive. Like, there's all these unknowns and uncomfortable things that go along with traveling.
Yeah. One of the partner is going to get tired, and you get to see how they react when they're tired, when they're hungry. It is going to happen, so,
right. And how cranky do you get, and how much can you hold for the other person, and how much can they hold for you?
And can you actually put up with each other for that long? It's just like traveling,
Right. Like if you, and I think actually one of the things that COVID has kind of brought in is people like, the divorce rate has been high because people were stuck together.
Yeah.
Right. And traveling is sticking you together where you don't get as much space. You don't get to go to your job for 8 hours plus an hour of commuting or whatever. You actually have all that time together. And yeah, that's an important thing to know. Do I like this person 24/7, or do I just really like them from like 6:30 p.m. until I fall asleep, and then for an hour, between like getting a shower, throwing some coffee in, going to work, and then a weekend is good enough. And then God, give me Monday again.
So recently when we talk about travel, like we just traveled almost 40 hours together. And
when you're talking about leaving Kenya and coming here.
Yeah, and coming here,
Getting
it was
tired, 5 airports, moving all of our stuff, having to get a special police permission to cross county lines.
Yeah, and that just shows like how because every time we've traveled and we've had to pack up our things, like there has been a lot of tension.
There's stress around it.
It's always a moment where we're like we always fight. There's always like so much tension. There's this, and
can you believe it? That this couple ever fights?
Yeah, we do. Every couple does. But it's important like how we also have chosen to get over like we know how we fight, and we know how to resolve our own fighting, and the uncertainties that came with that travel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say like every couple should travel somewhere or go camping. Yeah, go camping. I don't do that. No.
That's for me.
So what else should couples do or make sure that they do before they get engaged?
Meeting the family?
Yeah, it's so important, especially for us as interracial couples.
Yeah. I mean, when you get engaged, you are also engaging your families in each other and in each other's families. I don't think that it's necessary that it's as smooth as your own relationship, but the family of your future spouse, it has a huge impact on them, on who they have become, but also even in their future. If there's an emergency in my family, I need to upend our lives and go deal with that.
Correct.
Whatever that might be. So there's definitely a connection. And then we're just going to spend time together. So
Yeah, like for you, going to Kenya for me was so important for our relationship that we traveled and you got to spend time with my family. You got to see where I came from. You got to see how I was raised.
Yep.
And I felt like a big chunk of our, like some part of our relationship before we moved to Kenya is like, you really didn't know me.
Yeah.
And so when we moved to Kenya, you actually got to see like where I come from, like who I am and like how my childhood and my family has shaped who I've become. And that is so important. And now we are living in Petaluma, Northern California, and we are living close to your family.
Yep.
And it's so important. I've been hanging out with your dad more, and I see how you're so much like your dad, in so many ways. And like, I'm happy to be around your family because I get to see like who you are,
Right.
through him and through your brothers. And so, and the last thing, not the last thing, but one of the things that you should talk about before you get engaged is the type of wedding and when the wedding is going to be before you get engaged.
When? You need to pick a date?
You don't need to pick a date, but I think it's crucial to be like, are we going to get married 10 years from now? And it's something we haven't discussed, but do we want to get married in a year after we get engaged? Or do you want to get married 10 years after we get engaged?
Well, I guess that's why there's no ring, because we haven't discussed this exactly. Actually, you know what? We have, in some ways we've discussed it, but every time we're actually clearly, like, I think we're ready for engagement. So I think I might disagree with you on this one.
Okay.
Because I know you're the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with, but what exactly that looks like, we're both a little confused because you're Kenyan, I am American. So there's like traditional Kenyan weddings, and then there's also Kenya's obviously both, Christian and a Muslim country, but then, where you're part of Kenya is Christian. And so then there's Christian weddings, and then now there's really, there's civil weddings. There's all sorts of different things. And, not only do we have the smorgasbord of types of weddings to choose from in America, but now also Kenya, and we're coming together. And then, Kenya has a tradition of dowry. And do we do that? And in what way would we do that? And I think we're both a little confused about that.
I have to agree with you. I am confused. Like, I don't know what kind of a wedding that I want. But I think there's a few things that kind of guide the kind of wedding that I want. It's like, I know for sure, like, I don't want a huge wedding.
Well, we definitely don't want to do what some people do, which is basically mortgage your future in order to have a $50,000 or $100,000 or $250,000 wedding.
No, I don't need 500 people or 300 people at my wedding. Like, I know. And there's also something else. Like, I don't want a destination wedding because I think I just feel like I don't have, all my friends are not rich, and I would want my friends to attend without feeling like they're breaking the bank,
Yeah.
So
and then we have these other things too, of like, if we get married here, that means that your Kenyan family and Kenyan friends don't get to come. If we do it there, and then it's like, who's going to come?
Who has the privilege to travel, who has the privilege to buy the ticket, who can afford it, who can afford it, so I think those are questions
taking time. It takes forever to get. Kenya is the other side of the planet. It takes a long time to get there. It's not something you just go to. It's not like, it's not like going to New York. It's not like going to London. If you get to London, you're not even like halfway there.
No,
you have to like keep going again. This like that amount again. So
I do think like we do know these things. I'm not saying like we know the day, but we kind of we've talked about it enough to know some of these things, like we both knew that we don't want an expensive wedding. We both know that we don't want a destination wedding. And we know that we want our friends to attend and make it, I don't know. And so what I was talking about the date is like, I don't think I need to know the exact date. And we can keep talking about this, but once we engage, like, I wouldn't want to be like dragging it for another 4 years.
All right. This might be the last podcast.
And I think I'll go to like friends and family backyard wedding and then going to my family in Kenya and doing the same thing.
Okay, there we go. We might have just decided that. So that's good news for our future. And I just want to kind of just shine a light a little bit on our conversation around this, because I think it's also important and not necessary by any means, but to bring awareness around how engagement works today. Where is the power balance or imbalance when there's an expectation that I, as the man, propose, or that it's like the secretive thing, or when is he going to propose? Is he really going to do it? Like, what kind of communication skills would we have been lacking if this was a thing where you're talking to your girlfriends about when is he going to propose and not talking to me and not having this free-flowing conversation, or where I'm just like, I'm thinking this whole thing in my head or completely not thinking about it. I think everybody thinks about it. There's a finite amount of time. It might be long, but at a certain point, it's a finite amount of time. What do you want to do with that time? Who do you want to spend that time with? Conversation doesn't need to come up early. For us, it came up fairly early, but it could take 5, 6, or 7 years before that comes in. But if it becomes this thing that we don't talk about, I just don't think that bodes particularly well.
No, it doesn't. And I think I think most of the way, and I'll speak this as a woman, we've been told in the modern world to talk about engagement and wedding and dating is that you're always waiting for the man. Before I started dating you, I was dating as if I didn't know what I wanted, So, and then I was like, I have a voice in this and I'm done not speaking what I want. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I'm going to date and be very clear about what I want.
And you're like, I want him. And I was like, that's cool because I want her.
And these are the things that I'm looking for, in a relationship and a committed relationship. And it makes it so much easier because each partner understands, and it can be hard, but like once you have clarity about what you want, it becomes easier to have that conversation.
Yep.
And to me, in my 30s, I was more clear, like, okay, I want a committed relationship. I want to have a family. I want a commitment. And I wasn't just going to kind of not say what I wanted.
Yeah.
So.
And there it is. I think that is kind of the key in this, is speaking what is important. And I guess it's kind of in closing, I think I want to just say that speaking of saying what is important to me is super key. And then so is also the key to be both clear about what you want, but then also to open to what the other one wants. So that way there's a real flow in this. And so I think when we kind of go back through all these things, whether it's sex or money or family or wedding or traveling and all these things, what is this kind of the key there is communicating honestly with where you are while also really listening into the other.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in.
And really curious if anybody here is like, if you're getting engaged, if you're thinking about it, like, how is this process for you? Share that with us. Make sure to, note it down in the comments below or reach out to us, info.itsnotall@gmail.com. And we'd absolutely love to hear from you. And if you've got engagement pictures, you can share those too.
Seriously.
That would be fun.
That would be so cool.
Yep.
And you can subscribe to our podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
Yep. And you'll find us on YouTube as well. And in the meantime, have a fantastic week. And for anyone who's getting engaged this week, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.